This moment changes everything. Listen closely. A clear roadmap to love yourself and level up awaits 10 practical chapters that strip excuses and build daily discipline. Expect tools to embrace flaws, heal wounds, reclaim worth, forgive, trust intuition, protect mindset, stop settling, love boldly, design your future, and detach from approval. Presented by Jessica on Premium Audiobooks. This audiobook delivers actionable steps, stoic wisdom, and emotional clarity to transform habits and results into lasting change. Subscribe now to join a focused community, get consistent motivation, and unlock new episodes that move you from stuck to unstoppable. Subscribe for more content. Number 1. Embrace flaws, build confidence, chase growth. There comes a moment when you finally realize that perfection was never the goal. The truth is, nobody has it all together, no matter how flawless they appear on the surface. Every person you admire carries scars that never show in the mirror. What separates those who rise from those who remain stuck is not the absence of flaws, but the acceptance of them. Real growth begins the moment you stop fighting who you are and start understanding why you are that way. To embrace your flaws is not to surrender to them. It is to reclaim the energy you once spent hiding. Confidence is not built by denying your imperfections, but by carrying them with grace and courage. Most people wait for the perfect version of themselves to appear before they begin chasing their dreams. They say things like, "When I'm more confident, I'll take that risk." Or "When I've fixed this part of myself, I'll be ready." But confidence does not arrive before the journey. It is earned along the way. Growth never begins with perfection. It begins with honesty. To level up in life, you must stop waiting to feel worthy. You are not broken. You are becoming. The cracks in your armor are not weaknesses. They are the places where strength is built. Embracing your flaws starts with radical self-awareness. It means looking in the mirror without flinching. It means acknowledging your tendencies, the way you overthink, the times you procrastinate, the habits you wish you could outgrow, and realizing that these parts of you are information, not condemnation. Every behavior has a story behind it. The fear that stops you from speaking up may have been born in a childhood moment when you felt unheard. The perfectionism that drives you to exhaustion might have begun as a way to earn love. When you trace your patterns to their roots, you stop judging yourself for them and start healing them. Growth is impossible without compassion. The world teaches you to hustle harder, to fix, to improve, to become more. But real transformation happens when you stop waging war against yourself. You can't grow from a place of hatred toward who you are. You can only grow when you meet yourself with patience. Confidence isn't built overnight. It grows quietly every time you keep a promise to yourself. Each morning you wake up and choose to try again. You are laying another brick of self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of unshakable confidence. There is a quiet power in admitting that you are a work in progress. You stop pretending and start living. When you embrace your flaws, you become more authentic. And authenticity breeds connection. People don't fall in love with your perfection. They fall in love with your honesty. The world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs more real ones. When you allow your imperfections to exist, you give others permission to do the same. That is how collective healing begins. One honest soul at a time. Building confidence is not about pretending to have it all figured out. It's about showing up despite the fear. It's about trusting that even if you fail, you will not fall apart. Confidence grows in motion, not in waiting. You can read every book, listen to every motivational talk, and still feel stuck until you start taking action. Action is the antidote to doubt. Every small victory matters. The conversation you were afraid to have, the project you dared to start, the boundary you finally set. These small acts compound into courage. Confidence is not arrogance. It is quiet certainty that you can handle whatever comes next. Self-belief is like a muscle. It strengthens through resistance. The moments that challenge you are not there to break you. They are there to prepare you. When you embrace your flaws, you stop fearing discomfort. You begin to understand that growth feels messy, uncertain, and uncomfortable. That's why so many people avoid it. But if you only move when it's easy, you'll never reach your full potential. Growth is not supposed to feel safe. It's supposed to stretch you. When you're growing, there will be doubt, fear, and even pain. But all of it is proof that you're alive and evolving. To chase growth means to make peace with change. You cannot hold on to your old self and step into your new one at the same time. You have to release the version of you that survived but is no longer needed. Growth requires loss. The loss of old habits, old stories, old identities. It's painful because it feels like leaving home. But every transformation begins with letting go. When you stop resisting change, you start flowing with life. The more you align with growth, the more you realize that everything you thought was against you was actually guiding you. Confidence comes from consistent alignment with your values. Every time your actions match your principles, you strengthen your sense of self. When you betray your values to please others, you weaken it. That's why embracing flaws and chasing growth must come from within, not from external validation. You don't need everyone to understand your journey. You only need to understand your direction. The people who are meant for your next chapter will recognize your energy, not your perfection. There will be days when you fall short. There will be moments when old fears resurface and you feel like you're back at the beginning. That's not failure. It's feedback. Growth is not a straight line. It's a spiral. You'll revisit the same lessons from higher levels of awareness each time. The difference is that with every cycle, you handle it with more wisdom, more patience, more strength. The goal is not to eliminate your flaws, but to integrate them into a whole, balanced self. When you embrace your flaws, you stop measuring your worth by comparison. You begin to see that everyone is running a different race. Confidence built on comparison will always crumble because it depends on being better than someone else. Real confidence comes from self-acceptance, the unshakable knowledge that you are enough as you are, and you are still capable of more. It's not a contradiction, it's balance. You can accept yourself fully while striving for growth. That's the essence of loving yourself enough to level up. In practical terms, embracing your flaws means identifying your triggers and choosing awareness over reaction. When insecurity shows up, instead of suppressing it, ask what it's trying to teach you. Maybe it's revealing where you need healing, or where you've given your power away. When you catch yourself comparing, redirect your focus to progress. Keep a journal of small wins. Each entry becomes proof that you are moving forward, even when the results are not yet visible. Building confidence requires intentional repetition. Speak kindly to yourself daily. Replace self-criticism with curiosity. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," ask, "What can I learn from this?" The words you speak to yourself shape your inner world. Over time, those words become beliefs, and beliefs become destiny. The more you affirm your strength, the more your subconscious begins to believe it. You don't fake confidence. You cultivate it through action and affirmation. Chasing growth is a lifelong commitment to becoming a little better every day. It's not about monumental leaps, but consistent steps. Read, learn, reflect, take responsibility, and surround yourself with people who challenge you to rise. Growth doesn't require perfection. It requires persistence. Discipline is love in action. Every small effort compounds into transformation. When you start showing up for yourself daily, you stop needing motivation because discipline takes over. To embrace your flaws, build confidence, and chase growth is to live in truth. It means no longer seeking permission to be yourself. It means standing tall in your imperfection and recognizing that your worth was never up for debate. It means understanding that confidence is not found in becoming someone else, but in becoming more of who you truly are. Growth is not the destination, it is the expression of your love for life. At the end of the day, loving yourself enough to level up means choosing progress over perfection, courage over comfort, and authenticity over approval. It's knowing that every setback carries a lesson, every flaw holds wisdom, and every effort plants a seed for a stronger tomorrow. You don't need to be flawless to be powerful. You only need to be willing to face yourself honestly, to rise after you fall, and to keep moving toward the person you were always meant to become. Number 2, heal wounds, set boundaries, choose peace. Healing is not an instant transformation. It is a slow return to yourself. The wounds you carry, emotional, mental, even spiritual, do not define you, but they do shape how you see the world. Each scar tells a story about where you've been, what you've survived, and what you've learned along the way. Healing begins when you decide that your pain will no longer control your present. It is the moment you stop identifying with what broke you and start identifying with what you're building. You cannot rewrite the past, but you can stop it from dictating the way you live now. Many people move through life pretending they're fine, burying old pain beneath productivity or distractions. They tell themselves they've moved on, but inside, the wound is still open, bleeding quietly into everything they touch. True healing doesn't come from ignoring your pain. It comes from facing it with honesty. To heal a wound, you must first stop running from it. You have to name it, feel it, and understand its message. The pain you avoid becomes the pain that rules you, but when you turn toward it with courage, it begins to lose its power. Healing requires patience and compassion. You cannot rush recovery or demand instant closure. The human heart does not heal on command. It heals when it feels safe. That's why creating emotional safety within yourself is vital. It starts with being kind to your inner dialogue, forgiving yourself for the times you stayed in situations that hurt you, and acknowledging that you did the best you could with the knowledge you had. Growth cannot coexist with self-blame. When you release the habit of judging your past, you make space for wisdom to grow. Part of healing is setting boundaries, not as walls to isolate yourself, but as gates to protect your peace. Boundaries are a declaration of self-respect. They tell the world, this is how I deserve to be treated. Too often, people mistake kindness for submission, but true kindness has strength behind it. When you begin setting boundaries, some people will resist because they benefited from your lack of them. That resistance is proof that the boundary is necessary. You don't owe endless access to people who drain your energy or disregard your needs. Protecting your peace is not selfish. It's an act of self-preservation. A healed person is not someone who never gets triggered. They are someone who recognizes their triggers and responds differently. Emotional mastery comes when you learn to pause before reacting. When you stop giving others the power to control your inner state. Setting boundaries is more than saying no to others, it's also saying no to your old patterns of overgiving, people-pleasing, and tolerating disrespect. Every time you stand firm in your worth, you send a message to your subconscious that you are safe, that you matter, and that you can trust yourself. Peace is a choice that requires daily practice. It does not come from external calm, but from internal stability. You can live in chaos and still choose serenity. You can face uncertainty and still remain centered. The world will always be unpredictable, but peace is the discipline of not letting that unpredictability steal your focus. Choosing peace means releasing the need to control everything. It's realizing that not every situation deserves your energy and not every battle requires your participation. When you begin valuing peace over drama, clarity begins to emerge naturally. Healing is not about erasing pain. It's about learning from it. Every heartbreak, betrayal, and disappointment carries a lesson if you are willing to listen. Pain teaches boundaries. Loss teaches gratitude. Betrayal teaches discernment. Every experience shapes the emotional wisdom you carry forward. When you shift your focus from "why did this happen to me" to "what can this teach me," you transform pain into purpose. You become stronger not because you avoided the storm, but because you learned how to stand in the rain without losing yourself. Setting boundaries also means establishing limits with yourself. It's about recognizing when your thoughts are spiraling into negativity and choosing to redirect them. It's noticing when you're overcommitting or saying yes out of guilt. It's catching yourself when you slip into self-destructive patterns and reminding yourself that you deserve better. Boundaries with yourself are acts of integrity. They align your behavior with your intentions. When you honor your word to yourself, your confidence grows quietly in the background. Choosing peace requires letting go of control over how others see you. Not everyone will understand your healing journey, and that's okay. You are not responsible for convincing anyone of your worth or your truth. Some people will misinterpret your peace as distance or coldness, but peace often looks like detachment from what once consumed you. It's not indifference, it's emotional maturity. You no longer chase validation because you understand that peace is more valuable than approval. The process of healing is rarely linear. There will be days when you feel free and days when the past pulls you back. Healing asks for grace in those moments. It's not failure to revisit old pain. It's a sign that another layer is ready to be released. You heal in stages through understanding, acceptance, forgiveness, and renewal. Forgiveness does not mean excusing what happened. It means choosing to no longer let it live rent-free in your heart. It's the quiet decision to stop carrying what no longer belongs to you. Peace flourishes when you simplify your emotional world. It's found in routines that ground you in deep breaths before you speak, in morning stillness before the world wakes, in the quiet confidence of knowing that you can handle whatever life brings. When you start prioritizing your peace, you stop being available for unnecessary chaos. You stop entertaining arguments that lead nowhere. Stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you, and stop reopening wounds that have already taught their lesson. Healing also involves acknowledging that some people you love deeply may not belong in your future. That realization hurts, but it's necessary. Growth sometimes requires distance. You can love someone and still recognize that they are not good for your peace. You can forgive them and still choose not to let them back into your life. Boundaries are not punishments. They are maps that guide your energy toward people and places that nurture your well-being. When you choose peace, you become selective with your time, your focus, and your emotion. A healed life is built on small, intentional acts. Drinking water, moving your body, resting without guilt, saying no without explanation, speaking your truth without fear. These are all forms of healing. You don't have to make grand gestures to prove your growth. Quiet consistency is more powerful. The discipline to protect your peace, even when chaos tempts you, is the mark of emotional strength. Peace does not mean you stop feeling. It means your feelings no longer control your behavior. Every healed wound becomes a source of empathy. The more you heal, the more gentle you become. Not because you're weak, but because you understand. You see others through softer eyes, aware that everyone is carrying something unseen. This doesn't mean tolerating mistreatment. It means responding from wisdom rather than pain. Healing replaces bitterness with understanding, and vengeance with distance. You don't need to prove anything to those who wronged you. Your peace is proof enough that you've outgrown the chaos. Choosing peace also means releasing the need to win every argument or be right in every situation. Sometimes walking away is the most powerful response. Silence can be a shield that protects your sanity. The more peaceful you become, the less interested you are in convincing others of anything. You begin to value your mental clarity more than temporary satisfaction. You learn to conserve your emotional energy for what truly matters: your purpose, your growth, and your happiness. Healing wounds, setting boundaries, and choosing peace is an ongoing practice of self-respect. It's not something you do once and finish. It's something you recommit to every day. You choose peace each morning by deciding what deserves your attention and what doesn't. You maintain your boundaries by remembering that self-sacrifice is not love. You continue healing by honoring your emotions instead of suppressing them. There will come a day when you realize that your peace is the most valuable thing you own. No material success, relationship, or external validation can replace it. Peace allows you to see clearly, love fully, and live intentionally. When you are healed, your energy shifts. You stop reacting from wounds and start responding from wisdom. You stop needing closure from others because you found it within yourself. To heal your wounds is to reclaim your story. To set boundaries is to protect your power. To choose peace is to rise above the noise and live with intention. You are no longer the person who was hurt. You are the person who chose to grow from it. And that choice, repeated daily, becomes your quiet revolution. Number 3. Prioritize self-worth. Release toxic validation. There comes a point when you realize that constantly seeking approval from others keeps you chained to a version of yourself that no longer feels true. You begin to sense that your worth cannot depend on applause, attention, or how well you fit into other people's expectations. This realization is not born from arrogance, but from clarity. It is the quiet understanding that your value does not rise and fall with anyone's opinion. Self-worth is not a performance, it is a presence. It is the unshakable awareness that you are enough, without needing to prove it. For much of life, many people live as mirrors, reflecting what others want to see rather than expressing who they really are. They adjust their tone to please, their dreams to fit in, and their choices to avoid judgment. They chase validation like oxygen, believing that being liked is the same as being loved. But approval is a fragile foundation. It disappears the moment you stop meeting someone's expectations. True self-worth begins when you stop asking others for permission to exist as you are. Releasing toxic validation means breaking the addiction to external reassurance. It's not that appreciation or recognition is bad, but when it becomes your primary source of confidence, you are giving away your power. You start to measure your worth in likes, compliments, or attention, forgetting that these things can change with mood, timing, or convenience. The opinions of others are temporary reflections. They should never define the value of your soul. The more you depend on them, the more disconnected you become from your inner voice. Prioritizing self-worth starts with remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. Think of the child who moved freely, spoke honestly, and dreamed without apology. That essence still lives within you. It just got buried under layers of fear and conditioning. When you begin to strip away those layers, you reconnect with a part of yourself that doesn't need validation to feel complete. That reconnection is where freedom begins. Self-worth is not something you earn through achievements or praise. It is something you affirm through self-respect. Every decision you make either reinforces or weakens that respect. When you say yes to things that dishonor your values, you chip away at your sense of worth. When you stay in environments where you're undervalued, you teach yourself to settle. But when you choose integrity over approval, you strengthen your inner foundation. You begin to trust yourself, and that trust becomes the source of your confidence. There's a deep peace that comes with no longer needing to be understood by everyone. The need for constant validation often stems from fear, the fear of rejection, of being unseen, of not being enough. But once you understand that rejection doesn't reduce your value, that fear loses its grip, you can respect others' opinions without absorbing them. You can listen without letting them redefine you. Freedom is when you no longer bend under the weight of external judgment. Releasing toxic validation also means recognizing when you are giving too much power to outside sources, relationships, work, social media, even family expectations. When your sense of worth depends on how others respond to you, your emotional stability becomes fragile. You begin to chase reassurance the way a thirsty traveler chases water, never realizing that the well was always within. To reclaim your self-worth, you must turn inward. The validation you seek must come from the person you see in the mirror. This doesn't mean you become detached or cold. It means you learn to celebrate yourself without waiting for someone else to notice. It means you stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You speak up even if your voice shakes. You make choices that honor your truth, even when they confuse others. The moment you begin to live authentically, you discover that self-worth grows quietly in the background. It no longer needs applause to survive. The hunger for validation often hides deeper wounds. Times when love was conditional, when acceptance had a price, or when silence was the only way to feel safe. Healing those wounds requires honesty. You must look back and acknowledge where your worth was first questioned. Maybe it was by someone who made you feel small, or maybe it was society's standards whispering that you were never enough. Healing comes from recognizing that those voices were wrong. They were reflections of other people's pain, not proof of your inadequacy. Prioritizing self-worth is about learning to give yourself what you once begged others to provide: recognition, encouragement, compassion. You start by honoring your efforts, even the unseen ones. You celebrate progress instead of perfection. You speak kindly to yourself, not because you're flawless, but because you deserve respect regardless. Self-worth grows through consistent care, through keeping promises to yourself, through standing tall when no one is clapping. You also begin to see how chasing toxic validation keeps you trapped in cycles of dependency. When you rely on external praise to feel worthy, you become easy to manipulate. You'll bend your principles to please others, exhaust yourself trying to impress, and lose sight of your own voice. But when you know your value, manipulation loses its hold. You no longer need to chase people or prove your importance. You become grounded, calm, and centered. In practical terms, this means practicing stillness before reacting to criticism. Instead of instantly defending or explaining yourself, pause and ask, does this feedback align with who I am? If it doesn't, release it. Not every opinion deserves space in your mind. Learn to filter external noise through the lens of self-respect. You owe it to yourself to guard your peace. Prioritizing self-worth also means choosing environments that reflect your growth. Surround yourself with people who appreciate your presence, not just your performance. Choose those who encourage your evolution rather than depend on your compliance. You can't thrive in spaces that benefit from your self-doubt. When you stop seeking validation, you naturally attract authenticity, relationships built on mutual respect, not emotional dependency. One of the most empowering shifts you can make is detaching your identity from achievement. The world often measures worth in results, titles, income, recognition, but real value exists beyond those metrics. Achievements are expressions of your potential, not evidence of your worth. You can fail and still be worthy. You can rest and still matter. The moment you understand this, external validation begins to lose its hold. You stop chasing temporary approval and start pursuing genuine fulfillment. To prioritize self-worth is to live with quiet confidence. It's the strength to walk away from situations that don't honor you without bitterness. It's the ability to say no without guilt, to rest without shame, and to exist without explanation. It's the deep knowing that you don't need to earn your place in the world. You already belong. Releasing toxic validation doesn't mean rejecting all feedback or affection. It means knowing which voices deserve influence in your life. The opinions that come from love and wisdom help you grow, while those rooted in control or envy drain you. Discernment becomes your shield. You learn that not every compliment is truth and not every criticism is an attack. The difference lies in intention. When you begin to live from a place of self-worth, your energy changes. You stop chasing and start attracting. You no longer need to prove your value. You embody it. Opportunities, relationships, and experiences begin to align with your sense of self because the universe mirrors what you believe you deserve. The more you affirm your worth, the more your outer world reflects it. You become free when you no longer need to perform for acceptance. You start to live intentionally, creating from authenticity instead of fear. You speak your truth without seeking agreement. You walk in confidence that is steady, not loud, peaceful, not performative. You stop running after validation because you realize you are already whole. Prioritizing self-worth means waking up each day and choosing yourself again. It means remembering that your existence alone carries meaning. You are not valuable because of what you produce or how much you're admired. You are valuable because you exist, because you think, love, feel, and grow. No one can increase or diminish that truth. The moment you anchor your worth within yourself, life begins to unfold differently. You make better choices, attract healthier people, and walk with quiet assurance that you are enough. When you stop searching for worth in others, you finally meet yourself. You begin to understand that the love you were chasing was always meant to come from within. You realize that self-worth isn't built by comparison but by alignment with your values, your truth, and your peace. You start to live free from the burden of proving, and in that freedom, you finally discover what it means to truly be alive. Number 4, forgive yourself, evolve, outgrow old versions. There is a moment in every person's life when they realize that the weight they carry is not coming from the world outside, but from the expectations and regrets they've built within. The mistakes you've made, the choices you wish you could change, the people you've disappointed. These memories can become invisible chains if you never learn to release them. Forgiving yourself is not about pretending those moments never happened. It is about understanding that holding on to guilt does not make you more responsible. It only keeps you from evolving. Growth requires release, and release begins with self-forgiveness. So much of inner turmoil comes from replaying the past, as if one more round of regret could somehow rewrite it. But reflection without compassion becomes punishment. There's a difference between accountability and self-condemnation. Accountability allows you to see your past clearly, learn from it, and move forward with wisdom. Condemnation keeps you stuck, convincing you that you are unworthy of growth because of who you once were. The truth is, the version of you who made mistakes was doing the best they could with the awareness they had at the time. You are not meant to hate that person. You are meant to understand them and help them evolve. Forgiving yourself is an act of maturity. It's the acknowledgement that you cannot heal while still holding yourself hostage. When you live in constant self-blame, you deny yourself the grace you would easily extend to others. You wouldn't tell a friend to spend the rest of their life reliving a poor decision. Yet you speak that cruelty to yourself through your inner dialogue. Self-forgiveness is choosing to stop fighting your own reflection. It is deciding that your past will not define your future, that the pain you caused or endured was a teacher, not a life sentence. Evolution happens when you decide that guilt has served its purpose. Guilt is a signal that you've acted out of alignment with your values, but its role is temporary. It's there to alert you, not to imprison you. Once it has taught you what needed to be learned, you must let it go and act differently. Every time you choose compassion over shame, you strengthen your emotional resilience. Every time you refuse to let regret become your identity, you create space for transformation. Outgrowing old versions of yourself can feel both liberating and lonely. Growth means leaving behind habits, environments, and sometimes people who no longer fit where you're going. You can't keep evolving if you insist on staying attached to the version of yourself that once felt safe. The person you are becoming will require new beliefs, new disciplines, and new boundaries. It's a natural shedding, a quiet release of outdated layers that once protected you but now limit you. The process can feel like loss, but what you're losing is illusion. You may look back at your past with frustration, wondering why it took so long to change, why you tolerated what you did, why you stayed silent when you should have spoken. But those moments built the awareness that now drives your growth. Without them, you would not have the clarity you carry today. Evolution is not about erasing your history. It's about integrating it into your wisdom. The past is not your enemy. It's the soil where your lessons grew. Forgiving yourself also means allowing imperfection to coexist with progress. There will be times when you repeat patterns, slip into old habits, or question your evolution. That doesn't mean you're failing, it means you're human. Growth isn't a straight line, it's a spiral. You revisit old wounds from higher perspectives, and each time you do, your understanding deepens. The more compassion you bring into this process, the faster you outgrow the shame that once kept you small. Self-forgiveness requires honesty. You must be willing to face the parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. It means acknowledging where you've fallen short, not as a way to punish yourself, but as a way to reclaim your power. Denial keeps you stuck. Awareness sets you free. The moment you stop running from your mistakes and instead learn from them, you turn your pain into purpose. You realize that forgiveness is not weakness, it is emotional strength in its purest form. Evolution is a conscious choice. It doesn't happen simply because time passes. It happens when you decide that who you were is not who you have to remain. You may outgrow certain beliefs about love, success, or yourself. You may find that the things that once mattered no longer do. That is not loss. It's refinement. The purpose of growth is not to become someone else, but to become more aligned with your true self. Each stage of evolution strips away what's false so that authenticity can take its place. As you evolve, you'll notice that old versions of yourself start to feel distant, almost like characters in a story you once lived. That's the sign of healing. You can remember without reliving. You can look back with understanding instead of judgment. The past becomes a reference, not a residence. The beauty of evolution is that it doesn't erase your old selves. It honors them for getting you this far. Every former version of you was a bridge to the person you are today. Forgiving yourself also means releasing the desire for perfection in your growth journey. There will be moments when you make new mistakes, and that's part of life's rhythm. What matters is not avoiding every error, but developing the emotional maturity to respond with accountability and grace. You are allowed to evolve at your own pace. You are allowed to redefine what success, love, and happiness mean for you. The person you were 5 years ago might not recognize who you are now, and that's a sign that you're doing the inner work right. Sometimes evolution demands solitude. You may feel misunderstood by people who only know your past self. That's natural. Not everyone is meant to accompany you into every chapter of your growth. Some relationships were built on versions of you that no longer exist. As you rise, your frequency changes, and not everyone will resonate with it. That's not betrayal. It's transition. The people who belong in your next season will recognize your evolution and celebrate it. Forgiving yourself also includes forgiving yourself for staying too long in places that hurt you. It's easy to look back and wish you had left sooner, spoken louder, or chosen differently. But those experiences taught you what alignment feels like by first showing you what it doesn't. You cannot rush awareness. It arrives when you are ready to receive it. The timing of your evolution was never a mistake. It was preparation. Every delay had purpose. Outgrowing old versions of yourself can feel bittersweet. You might miss the simplicity of who you were before you became aware. Growth often brings complexity. You start to see patterns in yourself and others that were once invisible. And with that awareness comes responsibility. You can no longer hide behind ignorance. Evolution asks you to take ownership of your energy, your choices, and your direction. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. Forgiving yourself is an act of reclaiming your power from the past. Evolving is an act of taking responsibility for the present. Outgrowing old versions of yourself is an act of honoring your future. When these three come together, transformation becomes unstoppable. You move from self-criticism to self-respect, from guilt to gratitude, from stagnation to purpose. You begin to walk through life with lighter steps, knowing that you are not defined by what you've done, but by what you're choosing to become. The world will keep changing, and so will you. You will continue to shed layers, rewrite stories, and refine your purpose. There will always be new versions of you waiting to emerge. But they can only do so when you forgive the person you once were. Self-forgiveness is not the end of the journey. It's the doorway to evolution. It's the quiet acceptance that growth does not demand perfection. It demands presence. The more you evolve, the more you realize that peace is not found in holding everything together, but in allowing yourself to become. You can honor your past without being ruled by it. You can embrace change without fearing loss. And you can love every version of yourself, not because they were flawless, but because they carried you here. Each chapter of your story has meaning. Each mistake held wisdom. Each ending made room for a new beginning. Forgive yourself. Evolve fully. Outgrow gently. That is how transformation becomes liberation. Number 5. Silence doubt. Trust intuition. Take action. There is a quiet voice within every person that knows what must be done. It doesn't shout. It doesn't argue. It simply whispers truth. Yet most people can't hear it because their minds are too loud. Doubt, fear, and overthinking drown out the inner wisdom that's been guiding them all along. Silencing doubt doesn't mean erasing uncertainty. It means learning how to act even when uncertainty remains. The moment you stop letting doubt control your steps, your life begins to move in the direction of purpose. Doubt often disguises itself as logic. It tells you to wait until you feel ready, to gather more proof, to get permission before taking the leap. But readiness is an illusion. You'll never feel fully prepared for the life you're meant to live. Growth happens through movement, not hesitation. The longer you stay in indecision, the more you teach your mind that fear is in charge. The path forward only reveals itself when you begin walking. Confidence is not the absence of doubt. It's the decision to move despite it. Trusting your intuition means giving authority back to yourself. You've spent years being conditioned to seek answers outside, to trust experts, opinions, systems, and trends more than your own instincts. But your intuition is older than your fear. It is built from the accumulation of every experience, every moment of awareness, every lesson your soul has gathered. It speaks through feelings, signals, and subtle knowing. When you ignore it, life becomes confusing. When you honor it, everything starts aligning in ways logic can't explain. Intuition doesn't speak in noise, it speaks in calm. It's that steady sense of direction that rises when you're honest with yourself. Sometimes it tells you to walk away, even when everything looks fine on the surface. Sometimes it pushes you towards something new, even when you can't see the full path. The mind will argue, analyze, and complicate. But intuition simply knows. It doesn't negotiate with fear. It just waits for you to trust it enough to follow. Silencing doubt requires awareness. You must first recognize the voice of fear when it shows up. It often sounds like, "What if I fail?" or "Who am I to do this?" Or maybe later. But behind those phrases lies a simple truth. Doubt appears when you're about to expand. The closer you get to transformation, the louder fear becomes. Its job is to keep you safe. But safety is not the same as fulfillment. To silence doubt, you must remind yourself that fear is a sign of growth, not a signal to stop. Taking action is the ultimate antidote to fear. No amount of thinking can replace the clarity that comes from doing. You can plan endlessly, but until you step forward, nothing changes. The first step doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to happen. Momentum is built through movement. Each action you take quiets the voice of hesitation a little more. Action creates proof, and proof strengthens belief. Over time, what once felt impossible becomes natural simply because you kept showing up. Trusting yourself means standing behind your decisions even when outcomes are uncertain. Life doesn't reward endless planning. It rewards courage. Every meaningful achievement begins with one act of bravery. A choice to follow what feels right rather than what feels safe. Intuition rarely provides guarantees, but it always points toward alignment. You don't need to see the entire staircase to take the first step. You just need faith in your direction. Self-doubt thrives on comparison. The moment you start measuring your progress against someone else's timeline, you weaken your confidence. Everyone's path unfolds differently. What's right for someone else may not fit your rhythm. The truth is, your intuition speaks a language only you can understand. It's tailored to your experiences, your purpose, and your pace. Trust that your journey doesn't need to look like anyone else's. The more you honor your individuality, the stronger your intuition becomes. There will be moments when you act on intuition, and things don't go as planned. That's not failure, it's refinement. Intuition doesn't promise constant success. It promises direction. Even the missteps are part of the lesson. You are being guided, shaped, and strengthened through experience. Doubt will tempt you to retreat when things get uncomfortable, but discomfort is often the sign that something new is forming. When you act from intuition, you may not always get what you want, but you always get what you need to evolve. Silencing doubt also means becoming mindful of the environments and voices that amplify it. Surround yourself with people who encourage action rather than hesitation. Doubt multiplies in spaces filled with negativity and fear. If you spend too much time explaining your dreams to those who cannot see beyond their own limitations, you'll start adopting their disbelief. Protect your vision by sharing it with those who expand it. Energy is contagious. Choose proximity that nurtures your confidence. Sometimes silence is the most powerful teacher. When you quiet the external noise, social pressure, expectations, opinions, you begin to hear yourself again. You realize that your intuition was never gone. It was simply buried under layers of noise. Take time each day to pause, breathe, and listen. Whether it's during a walk, a moment of solitude, or a reflective pause before a decision, create space for inner dialogue. Your intuition speaks most clearly in stillness. Taking action doesn't always mean massive change. Sometimes it's small, consistent movement, a conversation you've been avoiding, a boundary you finally set, a project you begin without waiting for perfection. Each act of courage builds momentum. The habit of acting despite doubt becomes your strength. Over time, action becomes your language of trust. You start proving to yourself that you can rely on your own choices. That reliability becomes confidence, and confidence silences doubt more effectively than any external reassurance. Intuition often asks you to take paths that others don't understand. It's not uncommon to feel isolated when you start listening to it. The world values evidence, but intuition values truth. It's not reckless to trust your instincts. It's responsible. You are the one who must live with the outcomes of your choices, not the opinions of others. When you build your life based on what feels aligned rather than what looks acceptable, you begin to experience real freedom. Doubt often hides behind perfectionism. It convinces you that you must have every answer before beginning, that mistakes are dangerous, that uncertainty equals failure, but perfection is the enemy of progress. You learn by moving, not by waiting for conditions to be flawless. The truth is, clarity comes after action, not before. You gain understanding by walking the path, not by overanalyzing it from the sidelines. The longer you delay, the more power doubt gains. Action is how you reclaim that power. Trusting intuition is also about honoring the small internal nudges. The subtle pull toward something that feels right, the discomfort that signals misalignment, the curiosity that sparks new ideas. Too often these signals are dismissed because they don't make logical sense. But intuition operates on depth, not logic. It reads energy, not evidence. The more you practice listening, the sharper it becomes. When you start acting on your instincts and see how often they guide you correctly, your faith in yourself deepens. To silence doubt, you must also master your inner dialogue. The words you speak to yourself matter. When your mind begins to spiral into "I can't," "I'm not ready," or "what if it goes wrong?" Pause and reframe the question. Ask instead, "What if it works?" Or "What if this is exactly what I'm meant to do?" Doubt is fueled by fear-based stories. Replace them with empowering narratives, and you'll notice that your courage begins to outweigh your hesitation. There's a unique peace that comes when you trust your intuition completely. You no longer rush outcomes or obsess over validation. You begin to move from a grounded state, making decisions that feel aligned rather than forced. You stop needing to convince others of your direction because you've made peace with your own. You become calm even when circumstances are uncertain, because your confidence comes from within, not from control. Taking action aligned with intuition creates a life of flow. You start noticing synchronicities, moments where everything seems to fall into place effortlessly. That is the reward of alignment. It feels natural. Doubt thrives on resistance, but intuition thrives on ease. When you're in tune with yourself, you begin to experience a rhythm that can't be replicated through logic alone. Every step, even the uncertain ones, becomes part of a larger harmony guiding you forward. The journey to silence, doubt, trust intuition, and take action is one of liberation. It frees you from paralysis, from overthinking, from needing every answer in advance. It teaches you that courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. You start living intentionally, making choices not from pressure, but from purpose. You realize that your intuition is not a mysterious force outside of you. It is the deepest, most authentic part of who you are. When you trust it fully and act upon it, you stop surviving and start creating. Doubt loses its echo, fear loses its grip, and life finally begins to move with you instead of against you. Number 6. Invest energy wisely. Protect your mindset. Energy is the most valuable currency you possess, more precious than time or money, because it determines the quality of everything you do. Time without energy is useless. An opportunity without focus slips away. Every choice you make, what you give attention to, who you spend time with, what thoughts you entertain, either multiplies or drains your energy. Protecting your mindset is not about isolation or avoidance. It's about intelligent self-management. It's the art of knowing when to give, when to pull back, and when to simply be still. Those who learn to guard their inner energy live with clarity and purpose, while those who scatter it chase distractions and confusion. Your energy follows your attention. Wherever your focus goes, your strength flows. The modern world is built to steal that focus, to scatter your thoughts in 1,000 directions. Notifications, opinions, trends, and endless information compete for your mind. If you allow them all in without discipline, you end up exhausted without knowing why. The problem isn't that you lack time, it's that you've given your energy to things that don't return value. Mastery begins when you start observing where your attention drifts and consciously pull it back to what truly matters. Protecting your mindset starts with the understanding that not every thought deserves your belief. The mind can become a battlefield if you let every fear and doubt set up camp inside it. Thoughts are not commands. They're possibilities. You choose which ones to nurture and which to release. When a negative idea arises, you can challenge it rather than obey it. You can ask, does this serve my peace or drain it? That single question can save you from hours of unnecessary anxiety. Mental discipline isn't about pretending everything is positive. It's about refusing to let negativity define your state. The people you keep around you directly influence your mental state and energy flow. Some conversations feel like sunlight. They inspire, uplift, and recharge you. Others feel heavy, leaving you drained and uncertain. The more self-aware you become, the easier it is to sense the difference. Investing your energy wisely means recognizing emotional costs the same way you recognize financial ones. Not every connection deserves constant access to your mental space. Choose company that encourages your evolution, not those who feed your fatigue. You can care for people and still protect your boundaries. Compassion does not require self-neglect. The same principle applies to your goals. Every ambition demands energy, and not all are worth pursuing simultaneously. The illusion of productivity often comes from being busy without direction, running in circles instead of advancing. Focus is power. When you channel your energy toward one clear purpose, results multiply. When you scatter it among too many distractions, progress vanishes. Choose what matters most, commit fully, and release the rest. Success requires energy concentration, not constant movement. Your mindset shapes the lens through which you experience life. If your thoughts are cluttered with fear, scarcity, or resentment, everything you encounter will appear tainted by those filters. Protecting your mindset means choosing your internal atmosphere deliberately. Start your mornings with intention. Read something empowering. Move your body. Breathe deeply before you interact with the noise of the world. These small rituals create mental armor. When the world tests you, and it always will, you'll respond from stability rather than chaos. Energy leaks often come from unresolved emotions. Holding on to grudges, guilt, or past disappointments drains vitality like a slow leak you can't see. Replaying what went wrong keeps your energy tied to the past. You cannot build a powerful present while dragging the weight of old stories. Forgiveness, both of yourself and others, frees up massive energy. It's not about approval, it's about release. When you stop giving your energy to things you can't change, you reclaim the strength to change what you can. Mental protection also means limiting the amount of unnecessary input you consume. The more noise you absorb, news cycles, gossip, online debates, the harder it becomes to hear your own thoughts. The human mind was not designed to process endless streams of information from every corner of the world. Silence is not laziness, it's maintenance. Taking time away from screens, opinions, and noise resets your nervous system. In that stillness, creativity returns, clarity emerges, and energy replenishes. You must also monitor the conversations you have with yourself. The way you speak internally determines how you act externally. When your inner dialogue is filled with self-criticism and doubt, you sabotage your own energy. Replacing harsh inner language with grounded affirmation builds resilience. Tell yourself the truth. Not just comfort. Truth energizes because it aligns you with reality. When you stop fighting your current state and start working with it, your energy shifts from resistance to progress. The body and mind are deeply connected. A neglected body weakens the mind's clarity. What you eat, how you rest, and how you move directly influence your mental stamina. Physical energy is the foundation for emotional strength. You cannot protect your mindset while treating your body like an afterthought. Regular movement, clean nutrition, and consistent rest are not luxuries. They are disciplines of self-respect. When the body thrives, the mind follows. Emotional balance comes from conscious response rather than impulsive reaction. Every time you react out of anger, comparison, or impatience, you give away your energy. People or situations that trigger you do not control your peace, you do. The pause between stimulus and response is where your power lives. When you learn to breathe through irritation, to observe emotion before expressing it, you preserve your strength. Energy saved in restraint becomes energy available for creation. Protecting your mindset also involves recognizing the stories you tell yourself about who you are. Identity consumes energy. If you constantly define yourself through past failures, you remain bound by them. If you build your identity around resilience, growth, and learning, your energy supports expansion. Every time you repeat a belief, positive or negative, you strengthen its influence. Choose beliefs that generate energy, not those that drain it. A mindset grounded in possibility attracts opportunity, while one anchored in fear repels it. Investing energy wisely requires honesty about your current limitations. You cannot pour endlessly without refilling. Rest is not weakness, it's wisdom. Knowing when to pause is as important as knowing when to push. Burnout is not a badge of honor, it's a sign of imbalance. The world glorifies constant hustle, but true mastery comes from sustainable effort. Rest recharges clarity, and clarity improves efficiency. A rested mind makes better choices, and better choices preserve energy. Energy management is also about purpose. When your actions align with meaning, you rarely feel depleted, even when working hard. But when your efforts serve empty pursuits, exhaustion sets in quickly. Purpose fuels endurance. Every person has something that makes them come alive, something that turns effort into expression. The more your daily life reflects that essence, the more natural energy you possess. Protecting your mindset means living in alignment with that sense of purpose, not drifting in directions that conflict with it. The environment you create for yourself, your space, routines, and habits, either supports or sabotages your mental health. A cluttered space breeds distraction. An orderly one cultivates peace. You can design your surroundings to conserve focus. Simple changes: decluttering your workspace, setting quiet hours, curating what you listen to, can dramatically shift your mental state. Every detail sends a signal to your mind about what matters. Build an environment that reminds you of discipline and calm rather than chaos. Sometimes protecting your mindset means saying no more often. Every yes carries an invisible energy cost. People often overcommit out of guilt, fear of missing out, or the desire to please. But every time you say yes to something unaligned, you say no to something essential: your rest, your growth, your inner stability. Boundaries are energy shields. They are not barriers against love or opportunity. They are structures that ensure your energy goes where it can flourish. You cannot control everything that enters your life, but you can control your response. Every challenge, every disappointment, every criticism offers a choice: drain or strengthen. When you approach obstacles with curiosity instead of frustration, they become fuel for growth. A strong mindset turns problems into practice. The goal is not to live a life free from difficulty but to remain unshaken when difficulty arises. That steadiness is the mark of true energy mastery. Investing your energy wisely and protecting your mindset is a lifelong discipline. It is not about perfection, it's about awareness and intention. The more mindful you become of where your energy flows, the more powerful your life becomes. You begin to attract peace instead of chaos, focus instead of distraction, growth instead of stagnation. Every moment becomes an opportunity to choose preservation over depletion, truth over noise, calm over urgency. The mind becomes your ally instead of your enemy. And in that alignment, you discover that energy, when guided by wisdom, multiplies infinitely. Number 7. Know value, stop settling, demand better. Knowing your value begins with the realization that your worth was never meant to be negotiated. It doesn't fluctuate with someone's approval, a paycheck, or how much love you receive. Value is not something you earn. It's something you uncover. You were born with it, but life has a way of making you forget. The world constantly tries to define people by their output, appearance, or status, and without awareness, it's easy to internalize those definitions. When you finally stop seeking validation from outside sources and begin recognizing the power within, you stop settling for less than you deserve. Knowing your value is not arrogance, it's clarity. It's the quiet confidence that says, I no longer accept what diminishes me. Settling is often disguised as being reasonable. Many convince themselves that it's noble to accept less, that comfort is safer than risk. But the truth is, settling is self-abandonment, dressed as practicality. It's the slow surrender of your potential to fear and doubt. You tell yourself stories like, maybe this is as good as it gets, or I should just be grateful for what I have. But deep down, you feel the ache of knowing you're meant for more. Gratitude and ambition can coexist. You can appreciate your present without allowing it to become your prison. Growth requires discomfort. The moment you begin demanding better from life, you awaken parts of yourself that have been waiting to leave. Demanding better is not about entitlement. It's about alignment. It means you recognize that what surrounds you should reflect your standards, not your insecurities. When you know your value, you stop begging for what you can attract by being authentic. You no longer chase people who make you feel unworthy, or opportunities that don't honor your potential. You begin to see rejection as redirection, realizing that every closed door protects your energy from misplacement. Life meets you at the level of your expectations. When you raise them, Everything that doesn't match them naturally falls away. One of the clearest signs of self-awareness is how you handle compromise. There's a difference between healthy flexibility and self-betrayal. Compromise becomes toxic when it consistently costs you your peace, self-respect, or purpose. Too many people give away their energy trying to be accepted, but acceptance gained through shrinking yourself is an illusion. You were not created to live halfway. You were meant to take up space, to speak your truth, and to stand firmly in what you believe. The moment you stop apologizing for your standards, you begin to attract relationships, opportunities, and environments that match your strength instead of your fear. The world reflects back how you see yourself. If you believe you're undeserving of something greater, you'll unconsciously choose situations that confirm that belief. People accept poor treatment, not because they want it, but because they think that's the best they can do. To change that pattern, you must question every area of your life where you've settled. Ask yourself why you accepted less than you desired. Was it fear of being alone? Fear of failure? Fear of being seen as difficult? Awareness is the first act of liberation. Once you see the pattern, you can begin rewriting it. True self-value is quiet strength. It doesn't seek to prove, it simply knows. You no longer need to explain your worth to those who can't see it. You stop overgiving to earn affection or overworking to earn validation. You start doing things because they align with who you are, not because they'll make you appear valuable. The shift is internal. It's the decision to live from fullness rather than lack. When you operate from self-worth, you no longer tolerate situations that require you to constantly justify your presence. You begin to protect your time, energy, and emotions like treasures because you finally understand their weight. Demanding better requires courage. It means leaving behind familiar patterns, jobs, or relationships that no longer serve your growth. It's not always comfortable to walk away, but staying where your soul feels small costs far more. Many remain stuck because they fear the uncertainty of change more than the pain of stagnation. But the truth is, everything you lose when you demand better will be replaced with something more aligned. The universe doesn't punish self-respect, it rewards it. Every time you say no to what drains you, you create space for what fulfills you. Self-value also means refusing to chase validation. The need for external approval keeps many trapped in cycles of overextension and self-doubt. You cannot depend on someone else's recognition to define your identity. Approval is fleeting. Authenticity is lasting. The people meant for you will recognize your worth without you having to perform for it. When you stop seeking validation, you begin to live with freedom. You express yourself honestly, make choices from integrity, and find peace in your own company. Validation becomes unnecessary because your value is already self-evident. The environments you allow yourself to stay in reveal what you believe you deserve. Whether it's a job that underpays you, a friendship that belittles you, or a relationship that takes without giving, your willingness to remain communicates acceptance. It's not about blame, it's about awareness. You teach the world how to treat you by what you tolerate. If you accept less, you'll keep receiving less. The moment you raise your internal standard and act accordingly, you send a message that cannot be ignored. I know my value and I will not compromise it. That message doesn't require anger. It requires consistency. Many struggle to demand better because they equate it with selfishness. But valuing yourself doesn't mean devaluing others. It means you respect your limits, honor your needs, and refuse to sacrifice your peace for approval. You can love deeply while still expecting reciprocity. You can give generously while still requiring fairness. You can forgive while still maintaining distance from what harms you. Knowing your value allows you to love from strength instead of need. It transforms relationships from dependency into mutual respect. Your standards are not obstacles. They are filters. They protect your energy from people and situations that cannot match your level of growth. Lowering your standards to accommodate others never creates harmony. It creates resentment. Those meant to be in your life will rise to meet your boundaries. Those who cannot will naturally fall away. Either outcome serves your peace. When you stop settling, you stop chasing potential and start embracing reality. You no longer hope someone will change. You recognize where they are and choose accordingly. Self-worth also extends to how you treat your dreams. Settling doesn't only happen in relationships. It happens in ambition. You talk yourself out of pursuing goals because they seem too big or unrealistic. You convince yourself that it's safer to play small, to stick to what's predictable. But deep down, that choice feels like betrayal. The only way to live fully is to give yourself permission to want more. When you know your value, you stop asking whether you're capable and start proving that you are. You stop minimizing your vision to fit into other people's comfort zones. Demanding better also requires patience. You can't expect instant transformation when you begin raising your standards. Growth takes time, and there will be moments when it feels lonely. But loneliness is not emptiness. It's the space between what you've outgrown and what's meant for you. Hold steady. Don't lower your standards to fill a temporary void. The peace that comes from alignment is worth every moment of waiting. Each time you choose integrity over convenience, you build a foundation that can't be shaken by circumstance. Knowing your value doesn't mean you never make mistakes. It means you learn from them without diminishing yourself. You stop punishing yourself for times you accepted less because you understand that awareness is part of evolution. Every experience that disappointed you also taught you what you will no longer tolerate. Self-respect is forged through contrast. The more you learn what dishonors your spirit, the more clearly you recognize what strengthens it. Your standards become your compass, not your cage. When you truly know your value, you stop competing. You no longer feel threatened by others' success because you understand that abundance is not limited. You celebrate growth wherever you see it because you're secure in your own lane. That kind of confidence cannot be faked. It's built through self-awareness and boundaries. You understand that no one can take what's meant for you, and that allows you to move with calm strength rather than desperation. Demanding better from life is not about perfection. It's about intention. It's choosing relationships, habits, and environments that reflect your growth instead of your fear. It's believing that peace is a standard, not a luxury. It's recognizing that every time you settle, you delay your own evolution. When you know your value, you stop waiting for others to validate it. You become the source of your own worth. And from that place, everything you attract, love, success, opportunities will be built on truth rather than scarcity. The moment you decide that you deserve better and refuse to settle for less, life begins to rise to meet your new level. Number 8. Love deeply, dream boldly, rise stronger. To love deeply is to live without fear of vulnerability. It means showing up as your truest self, unguarded, knowing that love will always involve some risk. But the alternative, closing yourself off to avoid pain, leaves life colorless. When you love deeply, whether it's in relationships, friendships, or the way you pursue your passions, you invite meaning into your existence. Love is not weakness. It's the highest form of courage. It's the willingness to care in a world that often rewards detachment. It's the decision to open your heart even after it's been broken, trusting that connection is worth the uncertainty. Many people hold back love out of fear of being hurt, of being misunderstood, of not being enough. They guard themselves so tightly that they forget what it feels like to be truly alive. Real love requires presence. It asks you to see people as they are, not as you wish them to be, and to still choose compassion. It asks you to listen more than you speak, to give without keeping score, and to find strength in tenderness. Loving deeply doesn't mean losing yourself. It means expanding yourself. You grow through connection because it challenges your ego and teaches humility. It strips away your defenses and reminds you that humanity thrives on empathy. To dream boldly is to refuse to live small. It's deciding that the life you imagine is not a fantasy. It's a possibility. The world belongs to those who dare to believe in more, not because they're fearless, but because they act despite fear. Bold dreams require discipline, not luck. They demand a mindset that sees obstacles as stepping stones rather than barriers. Most people stop dreaming because they've been disappointed before. They learn to lower their expectations to avoid heartbreak. But safety and greatness rarely coexist. Every extraordinary life began with someone daring to imagine something others called impossible. The difference between those who dream and those who achieve lies in courage. The courage to begin even when you can't see the whole path. When you dream boldly, you stretch beyond the comfort of the familiar. You give yourself permission to explore possibilities that defy logic. It's not about recklessness. It's about faith in your capacity to evolve. A bold dream often reveals who you truly are, because it demands the best version of you to come forward. It calls for discipline, resilience, and patience. You will face doubt, rejection, and moments of exhaustion, but the dream becomes the compass that keeps you moving. Every setback becomes part of the story, every delay becomes preparation, and every victory becomes proof that faith and persistence reshape reality. Loving deeply and dreaming boldly are connected. They both require an open heart. Love gives you emotional depth, while dreams give you direction. One teaches compassion, the other teaches vision. Together they create a life of meaning. When you love and dream fully, you stop existing out of fear and start living with purpose. You begin to understand that the greatest expression of gratitude for life is to use it, to give your heart to what you care about, and to pursue your calling without hesitation. The depth of your love and the strength of your dreams become reflections of how alive you are. Rising stronger is the natural outcome of living this way. Every experience, good or bad, shapes your resilience. Pain is not the end, it's the beginning of wisdom. The people who rise the highest are not those who never fall, but those who refuse to stay down. Strength is built in the quiet moments, when no one is watching, when you choose perseverance over defeat. Rising stronger means learning from what broke you without letting it define you. It's taking every scar and turning it into a reminder of how far you've come. Growth doesn't erase pain, but it transforms it into purpose. When you rise stronger, you no longer see failure as loss. You see it as instruction. Each setback teaches you about your limits, your endurance, and your priorities. The moments that once felt unbearable often become the very experiences that give you depth. Strength isn't loud. It's the steady determination to keep moving when the world feels heavy. It's the quiet belief that even in the darkness, you still carry your own light. Rising stronger means trusting that every challenge has a lesson, every ending has a hidden beginning, and every fall holds the potential for transformation. To love deeply is also to rise from heartbreak with grace. When love ends or disappoints, it's easy to close yourself off, to believe that caring too much is a mistake. But love, even when it hurts, always leaves you wiser. It teaches you what you value, what you need, and what you won't accept again. Each relationship, whether it lasts a lifetime or a season, expands your understanding of yourself. To love deeply after loss is to prove to yourself that pain did not harden you. You learn to keep your heart open, not because you're naive, but because you refuse to let bitterness win. Dreaming boldly also comes with the risk of failure. There will be moments when you question your worth, when you doubt your direction, when progress feels invisible. But dreams are tested to strengthen you. They teach patience and endurance. The greater your vision, the greater the resistance you'll face, internally and externally. Every challenge is an invitation to rise stronger. The people who accomplish great things are not always the most talented, but they are the ones who kept going after others gave up. They understood that dreaming boldly means showing up again and again, even when no one is applauding. Strength doesn't mean invulnerability. It means embracing vulnerability with wisdom. You don't need to pretend to have it all together to be powerful. Real strength is soft enough to feel yet firm enough to stand. It's crying when you need to, but never losing sight of the light ahead. It's believing in love even when it's hurt you. It's daring to start again after every disappointment. To rise stronger means to be both gentle and unbreakable, compassionate yet determined, hopeful yet grounded in reality. It's balance through acceptance, not denial. Loving deeply and dreaming boldly demand emotional honesty. You can't truly love if you're disconnected from your own truth, and you can't chase a dream you don't believe you deserve. Both require authenticity. You must confront the stories you tell yourself, the ones that say you're unworthy, incapable, or too late. Those beliefs keep you small. When you replace them with faith in your own potential, you start living differently. You approach people with openness instead of fear, and you approach goals with confidence instead of hesitation. Authentic living creates momentum because it aligns your actions with your essence. To love deeply is to see beauty where others see flaws. It's recognizing that every person you meet is fighting unseen battles and choosing kindness anyway. Love, in its purest form, heals. It reminds people that they matter. The same love you give to others must also be given to yourself. You cannot rise stronger if you constantly criticize your own reflection. Loving yourself deeply is not vanity, it's foundation. It gives you the strength to face rejection, the courage to take risks, and the patience to endure setbacks. When you are rooted in self-love, the storms may bend you, but they will never break you. Dreaming boldly means refusing to be defined by circumstance. It's the refusal to let the past dictate what's possible. Even if others doubt you, even if the odds seem impossible, you continue to act. You understand that the act of dreaming itself is an act of defiance, a declaration that you will not settle for mediocrity. Every great achievement in history began as an unreasonable dream. You carry that same potential within you. The world changes when people stop asking for permission to believe in themselves. Rising stronger means living with gratitude. Even for the struggles, gratitude doesn't deny difficulty, it transforms it. When you're grateful, you stop seeing challenges as punishment and start seeing them as preparation. Every loss strengthens your empathy. Every delay sharpens your patience. Every obstacle refines your resilience. Gratitude keeps your heart open while you rebuild. It's the mindset that turns pain into progress. Life is not about avoiding hardship or seeking constant comfort. It's about evolving through experience. To love deeply is to give your heart fully. To dream boldly is to give your soul direction. To rise stronger is to turn every fall into wisdom. When these three principles intertwine, you become unstoppable. You live with courage, not because you're unafraid, but because you've learned that love, dreams, and resilience are stronger than fear. You learn to meet life with open hands, ready to give, ready to receive, and ready to begin again. That is the essence of rising stronger. To keep believing, to keep loving, and to keep reaching for more, no matter how many times you've been tested. Number 9. Accept past, design future, live intentionally. Acceptance is one of the hardest forms of strength to master because it requires surrender without resentment. Accepting the past doesn't mean you approve of what happened or forget the pain it caused. It means you choose to stop fighting what can no longer be changed. Many people live trapped in a cycle of regret, replaying old mistakes, wishing for different outcomes, clinging to the illusion that if they think about it long enough, it might rewrite itself. But the truth is, the past is permanent. What can change, however, is the meaning you attach to it. When you accept your past, you reclaim your energy from what no longer serves you and redirect it toward building something better. Acceptance is not passivity. It is power. It's the quiet understanding that every chapter, no matter how dark, contributed to your growth. You survived situations you once thought would break you. You made choices that taught you what integrity means. You encountered loss that deepened your empathy. The purpose of pain is not to punish, but to shape awareness. When you stop wishing the past were different, you free yourself to live differently now. Real healing begins the moment you stop asking why me and start asking what now. The what now mindset turns reflection into movement and guilt into growth. Many people mistake denial for peace, but ignoring what hurt you only buries it deeper. To accept your past, you must face it honestly. You must sit with the discomfort of your own history, the things you said, the things you failed to do, the people you lost, the moments you mishandled. The mind tends to rewrite the past to protect the ego, but growth requires truth, even when it stings. You cannot evolve from a version of yourself you refuse to acknowledge. Acceptance comes when you take accountability without shame and compassionately allow yourself to learn from every misstep. There's a kind of liberation in realizing that the past has already done its work. It brought you here, wiser, and more resilient. Every disappointment carried a hidden lesson. Every heartbreak opened space for self-awareness. The pain you endured built a foundation for your future strength. Instead of viewing your history as a collection of failures, view it as your training ground. You've been equipped with the wisdom to create better patterns because you've lived through what doesn't work. That insight is priceless. Once you've made peace with your past, the next step is to consciously design your future. Life doesn't improve by accident. It improves by intention. The future belongs to those who take responsibility for how they show up today. Designing your future means clarifying your values, identifying your priorities, and setting boundaries that align with who you want to become. It requires saying no to distractions that pull you away from your purpose and yes to the habits that bring you closer to your goals. The most successful people are not necessarily the most talented. They are the most intentional. They understand that direction matters more than speed. Designing your future begins with self-clarity. Ask yourself what kind of life would bring genuine fulfillment, not just external validation. Many people chase goals that look good on the outside, but feel empty inside because they're rooted in societal expectations rather than personal truth. Intention requires honesty about what truly matters to you. It may mean redefining success, shifting relationships, or pursuing a path that others don't understand. But when your actions align with your inner compass, you live with peace instead of pressure. Living intentionally also means being aware of how you use your time and energy. Every day is a canvas that you paint with your choices. The way you spend your hours becomes the story of your life. If you want to design a meaningful future, you must pay attention to what you give your attention to. Your focus is the architect of your destiny. Each decision, no matter how small, moves you closer to or further from the person you want to be. Discipline is not restriction, it's protection. It guards your vision from distractions and your peace from chaos. Intentional living requires presence. You cannot design a fulfilling future if you're constantly reliving yesterday or worrying about tomorrow. The present moment is where change begins. Awareness sharpens your choices. When you pause before reacting, when you choose mindfulness over autopilot, you begin to shape a life that reflects wisdom rather than impulse. Each moment offers a chance to act with clarity, to respond instead of react, to appreciate instead of complain, to create instead of compare. Living with intention also means setting emotional boundaries that protect your mental space. Not every opinion deserves your attention, not every conflict deserves your energy, and not every connection deserves continued access to your heart. The more intentional you are, the less tolerance you have for drama, negativity, and anything that drains your focus. Peace is not something you stumble upon. It's something you create through conscious choices. You design peace by deciding what you will and will not allow into your life. When designing your future, it's important to act from self-respect, rather than fear. Many people make decisions based on avoidance. They don't want to fail, to be rejected, or to start over. But decisions driven by fear lead to small lives. Intentional living is about courage. It's choosing what feels right for your soul, even when it scares you. Every time you act from self-trust, instead of self-doubt, you strengthen your inner foundation. The future you desire won't come from waiting for confidence. It will come from consistent action that builds it. Acceptance and intentionality work hand in hand. When you accept the past, you stop carrying unnecessary weight. When you design the future, you give that freedom direction. Together, they allow you to live with presence and purpose. A person who has made peace with their past and taken ownership of their future is unshakable. They move with quiet assurance because they know that no experience is wasted and no effort is meaningless. They've learned that life is not something that happens to them. It's something they create daily. Living intentionally also means slowing down enough to notice beauty. In a world obsessed with progress, many people forget to appreciate the simple moments that make life rich. The warmth of sunlight through a window, the sound of laughter, the comfort of solitude. Intention is not just about ambition, it's about awareness. It's realizing that joy is not hidden in the future but present in the ordinary. When you learn to be fully engaged with the now, your future unfolds with clarity. Sometimes acceptance means releasing old identities that no longer represent who you are. You may have built your self-image around roles, achievements, or past experiences, but growth requires flexibility. You are not defined by your mistakes, your losses, or your past successes. You are defined by your capacity to evolve. The person you were 5 years ago prepared you for the person you are becoming now. Accepting your evolution means giving yourself permission to change. It means releasing guilt for outgrowing people, places, and patterns that once fit but no longer align with your growth. As you design your future, understand that intention requires consistency more than intensity. Small daily actions create lasting transformation. A single choice repeated over time rewires habits, reshapes mindset, and redefines possibility. Progress is not always visible, but it is always cumulative. Every day that you choose presence over distraction, gratitude over complaint, or courage over hesitation, you're building a future that reflects who you truly are. Living intentionally is not about control. It's about alignment. You can't predict every outcome, but you can choose how you respond to whatever unfolds. When you live in alignment with your values, uncertainty loses its power to destabilize you. You trust the process because you trust yourself. Life will still test you, but you'll navigate those challenges with grounded confidence instead of fear-driven reaction. The beauty of accepting your past and designing your future is that it allows you to live fully in the present. You begin to see every day as an opportunity to express gratitude, to grow in awareness, to refine your vision. You stop chasing perfection and start cultivating peace. You stop waiting for someday and start creating today. This is what it means to live intentionally, to wake up each morning, knowing that your life is your responsibility, your choices are your power, and your mindset is your greatest tool. True freedom comes when you no longer run from your history or drift aimlessly into your future. You stand firmly in the now, knowing who you've been, who you are, and who you're becoming. You make peace with the things you can't change and take charge of the things you can. You release resentment and replace it with purpose. You live deliberately, aware that every thought and every action shapes the quality of your days. That is the art of self-mastery. To accept the past without bitterness, to design the future without fear, and to live every moment with intention, clarity, and quiet strength. Number 10. Detach from approval. Embody authentic power. The need for approval is one of the most silent prisons a person can live in. It begins subtly, often in childhood. When acceptance feels like survival, we learn that good behavior earns praise and mistakes invite criticism. And without realizing it, our sense of self becomes entangled with other people's opinions. As adults, that same conditioning drives countless decisions. What we wear, what we post, how we speak, what dreams we chase or abandon. Seeking approval feels like validation, but in truth, it's dependency disguised as connection. The more you rely on external approval, the more disconnected you become from your authentic self. Freedom begins when you stop measuring your worth through the eyes of others and start defining it from within. Detachment from approval doesn't mean becoming indifferent or arrogant. It means reclaiming sovereignty over your emotions and choices. When you detach, you stop handing your peace to every opinion that crosses your path. Approval is fleeting. It shifts with trends, moods, and insecurities that aren't yours to manage. If you build your identity on something so unstable, you'll forever chase validation that never lasts. The opinions of others are reflections of their perspective, not the truth of your being. When you stop seeking constant reassurance, you allow silence to affirm what noise once distorted. Living for approval often means abandoning authenticity. You shrink yourself to fit expectations. You silence your truth to avoid judgment. And over time, you forget what your own voice sounds like. But authenticity is your greatest power, because it cannot be duplicated. The moment you stop performing for acceptance, you start embodying real confidence. Confidence is not the absence of doubt. It's the refusal to betray yourself for the comfort of others. It's standing firm in your values, even when your choices are misunderstood. Approval-driven living creates an endless cycle of exhaustion. Authentic living creates alignment and peace. Detaching from approval requires self-awareness. You must recognize the moments when your motivation stems from wanting to be liked rather than from genuine conviction. Every time you notice yourself adjusting to please others, pause and ask, am I doing this out of integrity or insecurity? That simple question brings your power back to center. It reminds you that authenticity will always outlast applause. A person rooted in self-trust can walk away from approval without resentment because they understand that validation is optional, but self-respect is essential. To embody authentic power, you must first define what power means to you. Real power isn't control over others. It's mastery over yourself. It's the discipline to act from principle instead of impulse, the courage to speak your truth without aggression, and the humility to keep learning even when you're confident. Authentic power doesn't seek dominance. It radiates presence. You feel it in the calm of someone who knows who they are, who doesn't need to prove their worth through titles or attention. It's the quiet assurance that your existence is already enough. When you embody authentic power, your energy shifts. You stop chasing opportunities that drain you and start attracting those aligned with your purpose. You no longer need to compete because you recognize that abundance doesn't come from scarcity. It comes from authenticity. Power built on manipulation collapses under scrutiny, but power rooted in truth endures. You no longer need to defend who you are because your actions speak clearly. You stop convincing and start becoming. You realize that the most magnetic people are those who are unapologetically themselves. Detachment from approval is not a one-time act. It's a daily practice. Every day, you'll face moments where your ego craves validation. You'll be tempted to explain your choices, justify your boundaries, or overextend yourself to appear good in someone else's narrative. Detachment means noticing that temptation and choosing self-respect instead. It's not coldness, it's clarity. You don't owe anyone constant access to your energy or explanation for your peace. The need to be understood by everyone will vanish once you understand yourself deeply enough. Approval addiction often stems from the fear of rejection. But rejection is not the enemy. It's a filter. It reveals where you don't belong, where your energy isn't valued, and where your growth is being suppressed. When you stop fearing rejection, you unlock liberation. Not every space deserves your presence, and not every opinion deserves a response. The more you detach from the need to fit in, the freer you become to create your own place. Rejection becomes redirection toward alignment. Authentic power grows in silence. It's in the moments when you choose restraint over reaction, integrity over popularity, and patience over instant gratification. It's built through consistency, showing up for yourself, keeping promises no one else sees, maintaining standards even when no one's watching. Authentic power is not loud or forceful. It's steady and grounded. You don't need to announce it because it announces itself through the peace you carry. Embodying authentic power also means owning your story without shame. You've made mistakes, been misunderstood, and faced moments of weakness, but every experience contributed to your wisdom. The person you are today is the result of resilience. When you accept every part of your journey, you remove the leverage others have over you. No one can weaponize your past once you've made peace with it. Transparency disarms judgment, because authenticity has nothing to hide. You stand firm, not because you're flawless, but because you're whole. When you live detached from approval, your relationships change. You begin to attract people who value truth over performance, depth over appearance, presence over perfection. Genuine connection thrives when both people show up as their real selves. You stop fearing disapproval because you understand that love rooted in conditions is not love, it's transaction. You no longer beg for acceptance because you embody acceptance within yourself. Detachment gives you the freedom to love honestly without losing yourself in the process. Authentic power also demands emotional balance. It's not about being unmoved by criticism or praise, but about maintaining equilibrium through both. When someone admires you, you don't inflate. When someone disapproves, you don't collapse. You remain centered because your identity is not built on their perception. That neutrality is strength. It's the calm confidence that comes from knowing you define your worth. No external approval can add to or take away from that truth. To embody authentic power, you must also trust your intuition. Approval-seeking silences intuition, because you start looking outward for answers that can only come from within. Your intuition is your internal compass. It knows when something aligns or feels forced. Trusting it is an act of self-honor. Every time you ignore that quiet inner voice to please someone else, you weaken your connection to your own wisdom. Authentic power thrives when you listen to yourself and act on what you know to be right, even when others disagree. Detachment doesn't mean isolation. It means emotional independence. You still care, but you care from a place of strength rather than need. You can appreciate recognition without depending on it. You can welcome feedback without losing identity. The paradox of detachment is that it makes connection more genuine because you no longer interact from insecurity. You engage from wholeness. You give freely because you no longer need constant reassurance in return. Authentic power requires boundaries, not walls. Boundaries protect energy, walls imprison it. A person who has mastered detachment knows when to say no without guilt and when to walk away without anger. They understand that every no rooted in self-respect creates space for a yes rooted in truth. Boundaries are not rejection, they are direction. They show others how to value you and remind you to value yourself. Approval seeking makes you reactive, but detachment makes you intentional. You stop trying to prove your worth and start living it. You stop performing and start existing with honesty. You move from a life of seeking to a life of being. Approval demands conformity, but authenticity demands courage. Every time you choose authenticity over approval, you strengthen your sense of identity and deepen your peace. In the end, detaching from approval is an act of liberation. It's the realization that your worth was never up for debate. You are not defined by applause or criticism, by who accepts you or who doesn't. You are defined by how truthfully you live, how consistently you honor your values, and how courageously you stand in your own light. Authentic power is quiet, but undeniable. It's the freedom to live on your terms, guided by self-respect, grounded in purpose, and fueled by inner peace. It's the power of knowing that you need no one's permission to be exactly who you are.